Hello friends, welcome to BS Podcast Media, which is sub-channel of BS-Multiplatform Media. Before entering into the video, let me share some information about this channel. It's easier to listen to podcast than read the equivalent amount of text. Yes, it's true. When you are trying to read something, the brain get too hard to understand. But when you're listening, it is easy to understand the contact or any other stuff. It is scientifically proved that human can understand more stuff by listening instead of reading books. And thanks to BS-Multiplatform Media to making this video. It is open sources platform media which publicize your talent at free of cost. If you have a great stuff to publish, please contact the channel. I already tagged the information in the description box. So hi there, this is Podcast Lisa Speaker from BS Podcast Media. I hope you're having the great day.
Hi, this is Ravi. Before starting the chapter, please close your eyes and keep concentration on the podcast.
In this video, I am going to share with you the book called Social Engineering. Christopher Hadnagy is the author of the book, and he is the lead developer of Social Engineering Organization, the world's first social engineering framework. In more than 14 years of security and IT activity, he has partnered with the team at Backtrack Linux organization and worked on a wide variety of security projects. He also serves as trainer and lead social engineer for Offensive Security's penetration testing team. Thank you, Christopher, sharing this valuable information with us. Before going to the chapter, I want to share one line. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. Social engineering has been largely misunderstood, leading to many differing opinions on what social engineering is and how it works. This has led to a situation where some may view as simply lying to scam trivial free items such as pizza or obtaining sexual gratification. Others think just refers to the tools used by criminals or con men, or perhaps that it is a science whose theories can be broken down into parts or equations and studied. Or perhaps it's a long-lost mystical art giving practitioners the ability to use powerful mind tricks like a magician or illusionist. In whatever camp your flag flies, this book is for you. Social engineering is used every day by everyday people in everyday situations. A child trying to get her way in the candy aisle or an employee looking for a raise is using social engineering. Social engineering happens in government or small business marketing. Unfortunately, it is also present when criminals, con men, and the like trick people into giving away information that makes them vulnerable to crimes. Like any tool, social engineering is not good or evil, but simply a tool that has many different uses. Regardless of which one of those situations fits you, the information contained within this book will open your eyes to how you can use social engineering skills. You will also peer into the dark world of social engineering and learn how the bad guys use these skills to gain an upper hand. From there, you learn how to become less vulnerable to social engineering attacks. One warning up front, this book is not for the weak. It takes you into those dark corners of society where the black hats, the malicious hackers, live. It uncovers and delves into areas of social engineering that are employed by spies and con men. It reviews tactics and tools that seem like theories stolen from a James Bond movie. In addition, it covers common, everyday situations and then shows how they are complex social engineering scenarios. In the end, the book uncovers the insider tips and tricks of professional social engineers and yes, even professional criminals. Some have asked why I would be willing to reveal this information. The answer is simple. The bad guys don't stop because of a contractual limitation or their own morals. They don't cease after one failed attempt. Malicious hackers don't go away because companies don't like their servers to be infiltrated. Instead, social engineering employs deception stories or case studies. This is not merely a book about stories or neat tricks, but a handbook, a guide through the dark world of social engineering. Throughout the book, you can find many internet links to stories or accounts as well as links to tools and other aspects of the topics discussed. Practical exercises appear throughout the book that are designed to help you master not only the social engineering framework but also the skills to enhance your daily communications. These statements are especially true if you are a security specialist. As you read this book, I hope to impress upon you that security is not a part-time job and is not something to take lightly. As criminals and malicious social engineers seem to go from bad to worse in this world, attacks on businesses and personal lives seem to get more intense. Naturally, everyone wants to be protected. as evidenced by the increase in sales for personal protection software and devices. Although these items are important, the best protection is knowledge, security through education. The only true way to reduce the effect of these attacks is to know that they exist, to know how they are done, and to understand the thinking process and mentality of the people who would do such things. When you possess this knowledge and you understand how malicious hackers think, a light bulb goes off. That proverbial light will shine upon the once darkened corners and enable you to clearly see the bad guys lurking there. When you can see the way these attacks are used ahead of time, you can prepare your companies and your personal affairs to ward them off. Of course, I am not contradicting what I said earlier. I believe there is no way to truly be 100% secure. Even top secret, highly guarded secrets can be and have been hacked in the simplest of manners. Look at the archived story at www.socialengineer.org/resources/book/topsecretstolen.htm from a newspaper in Ottawa, Canada. This story is very interesting because some documents ended up in the wrong hands. These weren't just any documents, but top-secret defense documents that outline things such as locations of security fences at the Canadian Forces Base, CFB, in Trenton, the floor plan of the Canadian Joint Incident Response Unit, and more. How did the breach occur? The plans were thrown away, in the trash can, and someone found them in the dumpster. A simple dumpster dive could have led to one of that country's largest security breaches. Simple yet deadly attacks are launched every day and point to the fact that people need education, need to change the way they adhere to password policies and the way they handle remote access to servers, and need to change the way they handle interviews, deliveries, and employees who are hired or fired. Yet without education, the motivation for change just isn't there. Social engineering and its place in society. As already discussed, social engineering can be used in many areas of life, but not all of these uses are malicious or bad. Many times social engineering can be used to motivate a person to take an action that is good for them. How? Think about this. John needs to lose weight. He knows he is unhealthy and needs to do something about it. All of John's friends are overweight too. Thaivan make jokes about the joys of being overweight and say things like, "I love not worrying about my figure." On one hand, this is an aspect of social engineering. It is social proof or consensus, where what you find or deem acceptable is determined by those around you. Because John's close associations view being overweight as acceptable, it is easier for John to accept it. However, if one of those friends lost weight and did not become judgmental but was motivated to help, the possibility exists that John's mental frame about his weight might change and he might start to feel that losing weight is possible and good. This is, in essence, social engineering. So you can clearly say how social engineering fits into society and everyday life. The following sections present a few examples of social engineering, scams, and manipulation and a review of how they worked. The different types of social engineers. As previously discussed, social engineering can take on many forms. It can be malicious and it can be friendly, it can build up and it can tear down. Before moving on to the core of this book, take a brief look at the different forms of social engineers and a very short description of each. Hackers. Software vendors are becoming more skilled at creating software that is hardened or more difficult to break into. As hackers are hitting more hardened software and as software and network attack vectors, such as remote hacking, are becoming more difficult, hackers are turning to social engineering skills. Often using a blend of hardware and personal skills, hackers are using social engineering in major attacks as well as in minor breaches throughout the world. Penetration testers. Since a real-world penetration tester, also known as a pen tester, is very offensive in nature, this category must follow after hackers. True penetration testers learn and use the skills that the malicious hackers use to truly help ensure a client's security. Penetration testers are people who might have the skills of a malicious black hat but who never use the information for personal gain or harm to the target. Spies. Spies use social engineering as a way of life, often employing every aspect of the social engineering framework discussed later in this chapter. Spies are experts in this science. Spies from all around the world are taught different methods of fooling victims into believing they are someone or something they are not. In addition to being taught the art of social engineering, many times spies also build on credibility by knowing a little or even a lot about the business or government they are trying to social engineer. Identity thieves. Identity theft is the use of information such as a person's name, bank account numbers, address, birth date, and social security number without the owner's knowledge. This crime can range from putting on a uniform to impersonating someone to much more elaborate scams. Identity thieves employ many aspects of social engineering, and as time passes they seem more emboldened and indifferent to the suffering they cause. Disgruntled employee. After an employee has become disgruntled, they often enter into an adversarial relationship with their employer. This can often be a one-sided situation, because the employee will typically try to hide their level of displeasure to not put their employment at risk. Yet the more disgruntled they become, the easier it becomes to justify acts of theft, vandalism, or other crimes. Scam artist. Scams or cons appeal to greed or other principles that attract people's beliefs and desires to make a buck. Scam artists or con men master the ability to read people and pick out little cues that make a person a good mark. They also are skillful at creating situations that present as unbeatable opportunities to a mark. Executive recruiters. Recruiters also must master many aspects of social engineering. Having to master elicitation as well as many of the psychological principles of social engineering, they become very adept at not only reading people but also understanding what motivates people. Many times a recruiter must take into consideration and please not only the job seeker but also the job poster. Salespeople. Similar to recruiters, salespeople must master many people skills. Many sales gurus say that a good salesperson does not manipulate people but uses their skills to find out what people's needs are and then sees whether they can fill it. The art of sales takes many skills such as information gathering, elicitation, influence, psychological principles, as well as many other people skills. Governments. Not often looked at as social engineers, governments utilize social engineering to control the messages they release as well as the people they govern. Many governments utilize social proof, authority, and scarcity to make sure their subjects are in control. This type of social engineering is not always negative, because some of the messages governments relay are for the good of the people, and using certain elements of social engineering can make the message more appealing and more widely accepted. Doctors, psychologists, and lawyers. Although the people in these careers might not seem like they fit into the same category as many of these other social engineers, this group employs the same methods used by the other groups in this list. They must use elicitation and proper interview and interrogation tactics as well as many if not all of the psychological principles of social engineering to manipulate their targets, clients, into the direction they want them to take. Regardless of the field, it seems that you can find social engineering or an aspect of it. This is why I hold firmly the belief that social engineering is a science. Set equations exist that enable a person to add up elements of social engineering to lead to the goal. In the example of a con man, think of the equation like this: pretext plus manipulation plus attachment to greed equals target being social engineered. In every situation, knowing what elements will work is the hard part, but then learning how to utilize those elements is where the skill comes in. This was the basis for thought behind developing the social engineering framework. This framework has revolutionized the way social engineering is dissected, as discussed in the next section. Summary. Like any book, the knowledge contained herein is only useful if you put it into practice. The more you practice, the more you will succeed at mastering these skills. Previously, I discussed how social engineering is like mastering the art of cooking. By mixing the right ingredients in the right quantity, you can have a meal that is full of flavor and excitement. The first time you try to cook a meal, it might have too much salt or it might lack flavor altogether, but you don't immediately throw in the towel. You keep trying until you get it right. The same goes for social engineering. Some of the necessary skills may come more naturally you and others may be more difficult. If a particular topic is hard to understand or difficult for you to grasp, do not give up, and do not assume you cannot learn it. Anyone can learn and use these skills with the right amount of effort and work. Also keep in mind that, just like a real recipe, many ingredients go into a good social engineering gig. The first ingredient might make more sense after you get down the line a little more. Certain skills, such as the human buffer overflow, covered in Chapter 5, will only make sense after you master some of the other skills discussed in this book. Regardless, keep practicing and make sure to do extra research on topics for which you need clarity. Now let's start cooking. Your recipe. starts in the next chapter with the first ingredient, information gathering. This is the chapter 1 in social engineering book. Let's discuss the chapter 2 in next video. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe.